Hello friends, in this video I will share with you tips, tricks and techniques that are critical for you to ace your PNG interview. Now I have made numerous videos on PNG hiring process, starting with videos on explaining what is the PNG hiring process, commonly asked behavioral questions, commonly asked situational questions. I've also published and shared on this channel recorded sessions that I've had with my followers where I talk about the interview process and have the mock sessions. However, despite all that information, I still get asked a question by my followers, which is there any tip, trick, or especially a hack that I can tell them which they can make use of in the interview in order to come out successful? So here in this video, I share those hacks, tips, tricks, and techniques, most of which I have not covered previously in my videos, which are really critical for you to ace PNG's interview. Now, anytime I put a video together, so apart from putting in my own knowledge, I also go and research the topic on the web, just to make sure that I don't miss on anything. And if there is anything that is very critical and I'm missing on it or I don't know already, then I learn it and I add it in these videos or in these topics that I publish. However, for this very topic, and I don't mean just for PNG, rather when I was searching on the web for any interview, any tips or tricks or hacks for interview, all the tips that I found were very fluffy or were very much matter of fact, like dress up well, practice, be confident, and so on and so forth. Now, these are certainly good tips, but very standard suggestions and nothing out of this world. And especially for someone coming out of the college, this is like something very much given. Like, you know all this already. You don't need to go and check out a 10-minute video to understand or find out more hacks than knowing that you need to dress up well, you need to be confident, and so on and so forth. Hence, in this video, the hacks or the tips and tricks that I will cover are not available on the web. At least I couldn't find them. And if you do, just post it in the comments and let me know where to look for them, and maybe I missed it and I would love to be corrected on that matter. So for that matter, make sure you pay good attention to whatever I cover in this video all till the end, especially because I will put towards the end one of the most critical hack of PNG interview per se, which can make or break your Procter & Gamble interview. So stay tuned till the end. Now, apart from sharing content on YouTube, I also offer one-to-one coaching sessions. In case you're interested in having either a mock interview, a coaching session, or just a Q&A session live with me one-to-one, you can book that using the link that I will leave in the description of this video. In case you're wondering what the session would look like, I've recorded a couple of coaching sessions with my followers. I will leave the link for those coaching sessions in the description of this video. Now let's get rolling back into the video. So number one hack is always try to schedule your interview towards the end. That is the last interview. What I mean by that is whenever you're given an opportunity or option by the recruiter to select from 3 or 4 different slots, an interview slot which is more convenient for you, always try to pick the last slot. The reason behind that is that when you pick the last slot, you benefit from the recency effect. Because the person who is interviewing, let's say throughout the week, starting from Monday to Friday, and let's say he has 5 interviews, and if you pick the last one, which is on Friday, then once he's done with your interview, he will remember you more than the person who he interviewed on Monday because of the recency impact. So now when he goes and he debriefs about the interview with other interviewers who also connected with you and took your interviewer, or he debriefs with the hiring manager, he has more things to say about you. Now, this can go both ways, which is if you have a bad interview, then he will remember it because it will have a recency effect. But if you had a bad interview, in any case, you won't be getting into PNG, whether you do it on Monday or Friday. But if it's a good interview and you deliver it on Friday, by Friday I mean the last interview, that recency effect magnifies the good performance of your interview. Now, I have a separate video made where I cover this tip and other similar tips on how you should go about setting up your interview. You can check out those tips here in this video. Now, one important call out before we move forward. In case you find any value from this video, I have 2 requests for you. One, press the like button as this keeps me motivated. Second, press the subscribe button along with the bell icon so you get notified as soon as I put a new content on this channel. On this channel, I post content pertaining to financial and career success for early and mid-career professionals. Additionally, if you want me to continue making content like this, you can support me on patreon.com. I will leave the link to my Patreon page in the description of this video. Now let's get rolling back into the video. Second is about winning the first 5 minutes of your interview. It is just like if you are presenting to a big crowd. If you go on the stage and for the first 5 minutes, you memorize your speech, like how you talk about yourself, who you are, or how you introduce the topic. And if you can ace the first 5 minutes, there will be two impacts. One is because you've memorized and you give an impactful speech without any error and it's a flawless speech, you feel confident because you delivered those 5 minutes with confidence and with accuracy. Second impact is the audience mellows down as well because now they're looking up to you because you presented such a great show in the first 5 minutes that they have relaxed and they are not questioning your performance anymore because they're confident that you did the first 5 minutes so good that you will continue to carry that performance. So one, you are confident, and second, the audience, they feel that you are confident and you are someone who is very much in control. Similarly for interviews, when you come in, the first 5 minutes is about introducing yourself. Now, this is one question which is very important in my opinion, and I've seen it in my experience as well, but very underprepared because it's like, I need to introduce myself. I can introduce myself anywhere, but this is one question which you need to prepare to max. And the reason I say this is because this is the question which comes the first, and you need to prepare it well and ace it. Because if you ace this question and the first 5 minutes you rock it, like you deliver a flawless speech, then you've suddenly controlled the entire room. The interviewer is impressed. Now he's all eyes, all ears because he loved your answer so much. And more so because of the fact that the interviewer was not grading you on this question. He simply asked you a question without judging you as to how was your day or introduce yourself. And suddenly you come up with a very strong and nice story to tell. And that is where it is, his attention is all for you. And you start to feel confident as well because you delivered a very flawless and accurate speech. Now, I've made a separate video on how you should go about introducing yourself. I highly urge you check out that video. I cover more nuggets than what I've covered here in that particular video, where I talk about how you should go about introducing yourself, what are the things you should talk about, how you should present your story, and so on and so forth. So do check out that video. Now, the next one, which is somewhat similar, is that your goal in the interview is to come across as someone who's likable. I rather hire someone with whom I can have a good conversation, who's likable, because that is an individual who I will enjoy working with. And I want to hire someone I enjoy working with versus trying to hire someone who is intelligent, but someone I cannot work with. I don't enjoy working with, I cannot gel in together. So imagine if there is someone who comes in the interview and suddenly we have a nice conversation, we have a nice chemistry, we laugh, we chat, and I like that person and the person likes me as well. And suddenly we develop that bond and chemistry where I go like, I want to hire this guy. So he's not super intelligent, but he has all the skills which I require, and he's likable, which is he's collaborative. I would love to work with this individual. I can train him on things which he doesn't know already, but what I can't train him or her is how to become likable. So I would always love to hire that kind of an individual. And how do you become likable is by relaxing, taking the interview as a conversation. And as I said, do focus on your intro. Do check out that video that I mentioned about, because if you lay down a strong intro where you introduce yourself, your personality, that is where you become likable, and hence you become more approachable with the interviewer. Next one, and the most critical one, is don't prepare for the questions. Now I know I have multiple videos on this channel where I go about these are the questions you should expect to be asked in the PNG interview. However, I found many followers who memorize each of the questions and memorize answers to each of the questions, and they know like these are 20 questions I have which I expect to be asked in the interview, and here are the answers to those 20 questions. Don't do that. Rather, start with your examples first. Prepare for your examples first and then see which example addresses which of the peak performance factor or which of the questions that you expect to be asked, and start with your best and top examples. For this, you need to think of what are your major achievements, things that you're really proud of. Some project that you've done, you really felt good because you led that project end to end. And I'm sure if you think hard, or rather you don't really need to think hard, you should be easily able to come with 5 such projects which you're really proud of, which you had fun doing, you led end to end, and you had very big impact, and like the stakeholders were really happy and you had a major impact and they really who are appreciative of your effort that you put in those projects. List down those 5 examples and then see how those 5 examples can cover all the questions that you have listed or all the peak performance factors. I can assure you with those 5 top examples, you can cover 90% of the questions. So whatever question comes your way, you can use one of those examples, tailor it a bit and use it to answer the question. So let's say it's a leadership question, you can use a leadership example. If it's a question about how did you reduce cost or how did you reduce or optimize time, maybe it's the same example where you showed leadership and you were able to drive the cost down. Now the same example can be used for driving the cost down. Now I don't mean to say that you answer 2 questions with the same example, which is using the same example twice. Rather, what I mean to say is that you can always play between those 5 examples and see which one do you want to share and how do you want to share it and how do you massage it and change it in a way where you can address any question that may come in the world at you. This way you don't have to go through memorizing all the questions and then trying to find an answer to each question. Rather, you start with your top best examples and then address anything that comes your way. I also have a video where I explain this idea or this thought in detail and some other relevant inputs or suggestions on how to prepare for an interview. So do check out that video as well. Another somewhat related is make sure as you are going through the interview that you start with the best example first. So let's say you have 5 examples, but I'm sure even in those 5 examples, there would be one example which would be better than all others. There would be second example which would be the second best versus all others. So rank them in order of 1, 2, 3, 4 priority or in order of their being most impactful or being the best examples. And try to use your top example first, which is whatever question comes to you first, start with the best example. It is exactly similar to what I said about introducing yourself. If you can start the interview with a high score, with accuracy, with perfection, even if you do a blunder towards the end, it will be okay. It will all be wiped out because the interviewer is already in awe with you, with the great introduction you gave, and then you start with your best example and they already like you now. They are in awe with you, you are confident, you are doing good. And by the end, if even there is a small blunder here and there, it will be all ignored because the interviewer is just in love with you, how you started the interview. So always try to use your best example first. Now, it may not be always possible because the interviewer may ask a very specific question. Let's say they ask a question about, tell me about a time where you had a conflict. And the conflict example is very specific. And it is not your top example, it is your least best example out of the 5. Then hard luck, you go with that example, you don't have a choice. But if it's an open question or a question for which you can use multiple examples, let's say usually leadership, tell me about a time when you came up with this idea, tell me about a time when you reduced the cost and stuff like that, you can always play with the examples, tailor them, but try to use your best example first. Now next is about reverse interview questions. These are questions that you usually ask towards the end of the interview, where the interviewer opens the floor to you and says, okay, I'm done with my interview. Now, do you have any questions for me? Here, make sure, and I've seen many people do this, don't ask questions to sound intelligent. And I'll give you an example, the kind of questions people ask to sound intelligent. They will ask a question about, tell me about P&G sustainability projects and what is P&G doing about sustainability? I am so much interested in sustainability. I know so much about sustainability. Now, the person might be a finance guy, an HR guy, or even a marketing guy who has no influence on sustainability because the sustainability agenda is being driven by somewhere in the corporate, in the global headquarters. And they will try to make up an answer. They will try to throw in 1 or 2 things here and there or something that they've learned or read in any of the memos that came in. And when they start answering this, even they are not interested and they just try to answer because they don't want to sound dumb. So they'll give you an answer. So don't try to ask questions which, even when someone is trying to answer, it is not related to their field. It is not something that interests them. So don't ask the interviewer questions that doesn't interest them. Just because you want to sound smart, you want to sound as if you are a person who came in all prepared, who read the annual report, who read all about P&G, their initiatives, and now they are trying to act smart and try to project that how intelligent they are and how they've done their homework. Don't do that. Rather, ask questions in a way to project to the interviewer that you are the best candidate. Now, who is the best candidate? The best candidate is not someone who knows about sustainability. I don't care. Or someone about the stock price dropping. I don't care. The best candidate for me is someone who is committed, who is passionate, who is a fast learner, who is a good communicator. So you need to talk and ask questions around that so you can project that image of yourself. For instance, one question could be, can you tell me about what are the growth and development opportunities at Procter & Gamble? Now I'm interested because I am hiring you. I'm developing you. I want you to grow in the company. So this is all in my interest. And also I want someone who's hungry for growth, who's hungry for development, because this is the kind of individual who will be engaged at work. And I want to hire this guy. And suddenly I want to talk about all this. And then I think that this guy was interested in growing and developing. So this is the kind of person I want to hire. So make sure you ask questions to try to project yourself as the best candidate, as trying to project yourself as someone who's done the homework and is intelligent. Now on the same topic, I have a separate video made where I explain this in detail. What are the kind of questions you should ask and how do you project yourself to be someone who is hireable and a good candidate? You can check out that video here. Now on the same lines, in the reverse interview question, you can do another trick, which is call out the interviewer and ask him directly if there was anything else they wanted to ask you. It's like you putting the question bucket or question mic back to them, because you want to ensure that if there was some doubt left in their mind and they were like, maybe I'm just running out of time and this is a doubt I have and probably I'll just fail this guy and move on, and he or she doesn't end up asking that particular question or that area to you. But now when you force them and say, is there anything else you would like me to know to make sure that I am the right candidate for the role? And suddenly now their brain is thinking and they go on the same place where there might be some red flag about you not being the best guy at analytics or leadership and all. And they may tell you either just clearly say no. If they clearly say no, then they are in pressure. So it's a good thing because they will feel the pressure of hiring you because they already told you that there was no red flag, like you were the right candidate or you did good in the interview. So there is nothing for me to call out and say, I didn't understand this part or this part was a little weak. Because you asked that question, they answered saying no, and now there is pressure while they are walking out of the room to pass you or clear you for the interview. Now, this doesn't mean that they'll clear you, they'll still evaluate other candidates and they may find a better candidate and the response would be, I found a better candidate. But at least they will make sure they don't fail you. They will still pass you but may not hire you because there is a better candidate. And the reason they won't fail you is because the onus is on them and the pressure is on them because they clearly said in the interview that you did nothing wrong. So, which means you did everything right. And second, there might be something that you did wrong or you didn't answer or he didn't or she didn't ask you at all. And suddenly you ask this question, is there anything else you want me to tell you so that you are sure that I'm the right candidate for the role? And now they may ask you that particular question which they could have missed. And if they had missed that question, they would not have hired you or cleared you for this interview. So it's kind of a safe play and making sure you use this time which is kind of given to you to ask questions. Again, as I said, don't try to be intelligent. Use this time intelligently and ask them if there is something which is left that they want to know better. Now, when you're delivering your answer, also try to take note of the fact that whether the interviewer is taking notes or not. Now, this is very much easy if they're writing down with a pen on paper. But if they're typing, then you might have to observe a little more just to understand whether they're taking notes or not. The idea behind this is that when someone is taking notes, it means that you're saying something which is very important, they don't want to miss and they want to capture it. And if they continue to take notes, it means you should continue to speak about it more and more because they are interested, they're writing about it, and it is all good. But on the other hand, if they stop taking notes and you're speaking, let's say you speak for 30 seconds and they're not taking any notes and you speak for another 15 seconds, no notes, another 15 seconds, now it's a full 1 minute and no notes. Suddenly, it's time for you to realize that you need to move on because you're not saying something interesting or something new that they find noteworthy. Or maybe you've given the example and you've completed for them in their mind, you've given them all they wanted to know. Now, whatever you're sharing is not relevant and hence they've already taken the note of what was relevant and now you're just kind of wasting your time. So if such a situation happens, you see them relax and not taking notes anymore, it means you just need to wind up your example and move on. Next one, when and if you're giving an example which is a bit complex, has some analysis, has some numbers, has some visuals that again you can't present any visuals on the interview, but if it requires some visuals, some understanding of a particular situation or a particular industry or a particular concept which is already very difficult, one, try to explain it in a very simple and concise way. This is where you need to actually practice. If there are certain examples which are complex, you need to practice them. And the practice tip or litmus test is that you can explain that example to your grandma, which is you can just go to your grandma and explain that complex concept to her in such a simple and concise way that she can understand. Because remember, especially at P&G, you may not be interviewed by the hiring manager. So let's say you are in the field of engineering, and it could be a possibility that there is an HR person who interviews you, or there is a finance person who interviews you or takes one of your interviews. For them, it would be very difficult to grasp all the technicalities that you're talking about. So make it very simple, concise, and easy for someone like finance person who has nothing to do with engineering or who is far from engineering understanding to explain them what those concepts are. And one critical and important piece when giving a complex example or sharing a complex example is to check time after time with the interviewer if they understand. So say part of the example and then they say, does it make sense? Do you understand? Because the last thing you want to do is that you continue going and the interviewer is not getting it. Now he or she is thinking that there might be something that you will say which they will get and they will be able to understand all the things that you've said previously. So they are looking for that one thing, but you are continuously going, and either the example is becoming more complex, so they are losing further chain of thought or chain of understanding, or you've not given them that one or two things that they were looking to hatch onto to understand your complex example. And by the time you've ended the example, or by the time you are 1 or 2 minutes in the example, they've lost all track. Now they don't want to sound dumb because they are like 2 minutes in the example where you've spoken for 2 minutes. They don't want to sound dumb and say, oh, hold on, I didn't understand what you said earlier or how you started the example. Can you explain me the situation again? Because it may sound that they were not listening, or they were sleeping, or they are dumb. So they'll be like, okay, let this guy just blabber whatever he or she is saying. I don't understand anything and I'll just put a 0. This makes my life easy versus trying to ask and understand and look dumb. So make sure you speak for like 30 seconds, a minute, you explain part of the problem, and then you say, do you understand? Does it make sense? If they say yes, cool, they've understood that part, now move to part number 2, and so on and so forth. But if they did not understand part 1, then you need to come back to it. Help them understand that piece before you go to part 2, and then you move in that sequence. Another good tip, especially when you're giving a virtual interview, is to list down your top 5 examples in front of you. So in case you forget any of those examples and the interviewer asks you a question and now you're kind of scrambling through the list in your mind of all the examples you had, just put a list in front of you and just tell them or ask them, give me some time to reflect on it, or give me some time to gather my thoughts. During this time, just look down, maybe holding a pencil, try to scribble something. As you're scribbling, you can go through your examples that you've written down, pick the one which suits the best, and then say, I remember now. Oh, here's the one I want to share. And then you can go about sharing that particular example. Next is make sure throughout the interview, you sell in your passion, you sell in your positive attitude, and your ability to learn fast. Because at the end of the day, especially for P&G, they are okay with hiring people who are not the experts, who don't know all that they need them to know, but who have the right attitude, who have the passion and the hunger to learn. Because I can hire such an individual and can teach them anything. But if they don't have the right attitude or right passion, that is very difficult for me to teach. How for one person to be passionate, how for one person to be hungry. But it is easy for me to teach you NPV, accounting, debit and credit, but not how to be a positive person, how to have a good character, how to be hungry, and how to be passionate. I have a video on this, especially when you're stuck with a question for which you don't have an answer. That is where you can sell your passion, your attitude, and ability to learn fast the most. You can check out that video where I talk this idea in very detail. Another one, something that I have previously touched upon, is try to come across as someone who's collaborative first before coming across as someone who's intelligent. As I said, I'd rather hire someone in my team who will collaborate with everyone else, because at the end of the day, it is team effort. You won't be doing anything alone. You will be working in a team environment, and you will be working with the team. You will be working in a compromise situation at times as well. So someone who can collaborate with the team as against who's just intelligent but not collaborative. So come across as collaborative first and then intelligent. And the last one, which is most critical, especially for Procter & Gamble, is that don't give an example which is a compromise on P&G's PVPs, which is all about integrity and ethics. So don't give an example where you had to find a way out from the way things are done, or slightly not so legal way, or cutting the corners. Don't dare go into any such area, because you can have the best interview, you can be the best guy, you can be the top guy, but the moment you give an example where integrity or ethics is compromised, even if it's an example where you came across as someone very smart, intelligent, and you were able to find a way, but if ethics and integrity was compromised, your interview is gone. Rather, in P&G, they would take you through all 1, 2, 3 interviews. Usually there are 3 interviews. You will end up going through all 3 interviews before they make a decision. But if you compromise on the PVPs in, let's say, first interview, they will just cancel you there and then and won't even take you through the second and the third interview. So make sure you don't say something which compromises P&G's PVPs. Now, I talk about P&G's PVPs in much detail in this video, for which I will leave the link here above. Hopefully you found value in this video, and in case you did, I'm sure you will also find value in a video I created for resume writing. Because a lot of time you will clear your assessments, online assessments, peak assessments, but you are not called for the interview, and it could be just because your resume was not strong enough for it to be picked. So check out this video. And secondly, I have made a video which is assuming you get selected and you start your career. This is one video which is very critical, that is how to manage your manager. Do check this out as well, as it will set the right foundation for your career success in Procter & Gamble, or for that matter in any other company. Thank you.